I guess what I'll start by saying in this vein is how I've seen people translate this, transmuting fears into love. People will say things like, basically, if you're feeling fear, choose love, right? If you're feeling fear, choose love. Sometimes what that means for them would be to say loving affirmations or, affirm the love that you are. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. It's actually a good practice, but we have to be mindful of this in that we're not using loving affirmations as a way of avoiding our fears or trying to stuff them down. So sometimes we may feel fear and then we'll be like, okay, let me say these loving affirmations so that the fear will go away. That's not, we want to be careful of that. That's not the practice that we could try it, but I highly doubt it's really going to work. We can try it as an experimentation. I mean, I appreciate loving affirmations. I think they work well as to kind of build your core foundation of just kind of like your perspective of where you fit in with the energy of love. Because that is what you are on a deeper level and even more. So affirming that is a good general practice. But when you're in the midst of these is like experiences where fear comes up, we don't want to use those affirmations to kind of disregard what we're feeling or as a way to try to cancel it out. We don't want to cancel out our fears. We want to allow our fears to really show us what they need to show us. Okay. So now let's talk about just my perspective on transmuting fear into love. I would say, and I actually replied to the person on the group and said this, that you transmute fear into love through love. This is the idea of transmutation to begin with, is when you are going through the process of transmutation, what helps transmute something from one element into another is the introduction of an element that has a higher vibration or a faster vibration frequency, whatever. You need the introduction of something higher or something that can basically refine that first component or first element. So if you're dealing with something like fear, the introduction of love into the equation is important for helping to, transform that fear into something different. Okay? So how do you do that? How do you transmute fear into love? Well, you introduce love into the equation, and you do that by allowing yourself to be loved in the midst of your fear. So if you're feeling fear, what that means is that you allow your fear to be what it is. You allow yourself to feel it. You allow yourself to experience it fully without judging it, without trying to get rid of it, without trying to make yourself feel bad for feeling it. And we have to be mindful of our own perceptions of fear. And a lot of times it's subconscious, and that we don't realize we're trying to get rid of fear because we feel like it's a bad thing or we're not supposed to feel it. So that's something that we have to be aware of, right? So when we introduce love and compassion into this experience of fear, it gives us that space and permission to feel that fear without feeling like we have to conquer it. I know it's a very common thing, but like, conquer your fears, conquer them, which means we have to try to overcome them. That process, yes, that does happen. We will do that, but if you focus too much on trying to overcome your fear, you almost create a resistance to it, or you can almost amplify it by trying to conquer it. So get rid of the need to conquer it and allow yourself to be okay with feeling discomfort for a little while, knowing it'll be temporary. It's not going to be there forever. So a loving perspective is allowing yourself that space to feel your fear completely and fully without judging it, judging yourself, without judging yourself, and without trying to get rid of it. All right. So allow the fear to be what it is, where it is, for as long as it needs to be there. Okay. What you'll notice is that when you do that, so when you introduce this loving, compassionate perspective into your fear, You feel it as much as you can, but what you'll notice is that little by little, it'll start to dissipate. Depending on how strongly rooted your fear is, where it's coming from, that will make the time period vary, of course. But you'll notice that over time, as you heal more stuff, you know, what may start out as like the fears hanging around for a long time, it'll actually start to get shorter and shorter because you're tying up more loose ends, you're clearing things out. So, and a lot of times fears are intermingled and tangled with other ones. So you'll find that the more that you streamline your energies within, the less that any fears that come up will have to grab onto, right? So by integrating this loving perspective and allowing yourself to be in the fear starts to dissipate. And what'll happen is you'll start to have like a break in the clouds a little bit. My ears ringing. my ears have really been doing some crazy stuff, y'all. I'm a little nervous, but anyway, you'll notice a break in the clouds eventually, okay? And where, let's say you're trying to get perspective on a situation, but you're afraid to tap into it and see what's going on. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you'll have a break in the clouds where the fear will either start to dissolve, or you'll get to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm tired of being scared. Let's just confront this. Let's just do it. So you see the difference between doing it this way and doing it by way of trying to force yourself to confront a fear because you're trying to get rid of it. One is trying to override what you feel, and one is moving through what you feel, allowing yourself to feel it fully. And then at some point, you get to this point where you're like, you know what? I'm tired of being afraid now. Let's just do this. Let's confront this. Let's move on. Okay. And you have to have patience with yourself through this process, because you may kind of like, almost like a clam, open up a little bit, shut a little bit, open up more, and then shut a little bit. Allow for that kind of back and forth a little bit. At some point, because you're giving yourself that space and permission and that love to feel what you feel, and you've allowed yourself to kind of come to this time of acknowledgement organically, it'll be easier for you to confront whatever it is, you know, without feeling that force or push to do it, you know, outside of what you feel is right for you. Okay? So this is where the process of transmutation is happening, is once you do that, you're able to gain the wisdom that the fear is trying to show you, trying to give you, the information. There's always fear. In fear, there's always information or wisdom that wants to be shared. So you may find that at some point, you get to this point of clarity where you're like, okay, this fear was rooted in something old, and this isn't even really serving me anymore. This is something from 10 years ago. This isn't even something that's from the now. This is something from a long time ago. Or you might find that this fear is, I don't know, rooted because you don't know what's going to happen next. You know, oh, I want that light from my laptop. Lights everything up. It's I don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm afraid. And then, I don't know, maybe you'll confront that by way of just coming into prayer and feeling more in touch with your spirit team. There's so many ways that this can go. But the point that I'm trying to make is that when you get to the point of clarity, of wisdom, and you get that information and you can apply it properly, now you've transmuted that fear into love, in the sense that you have greater wisdom and greater clarity of what's really going on, and you're able to become more aligned with who and what you truly are and what actions you need to take based off of that. Okay? So the love isn't really, when we say transmuting fear into love, you may not necessarily feel, oh, I just feel so much love in my heart. You may not feel that. But it's love in the sense that it's an energy that is that permeates through everything. We've talked about love already. And when it's there's love and like a relationship love, and then there's the energy of love that's within everything. It's the energy of basically of divine source, right? Because it's in everything. It's the substratum of creation is what I've called it. I consider love to be an element. Love is its own element. You know, so basically, when you're transmuting fear into love, you're transmuting fear into, let's say, I'm trying to figure out like a better, like a word that's more accurate. Wisdom, deeper understanding, but all of that is you. Greater clarity, understanding of yourself. So you're basically taking that fear and letting it show you more of who you are as a being, as a child of the universe. All right? So I hope that this makes sense. I hope that this helps you in your practice, in your daily life. That's the last point that I'll make, is that this is why it's very important to have a spiritual practice, is the more that you stick to that spiritual practice, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing day in and day out, but doing things that feel right for you, is that it builds your cone or your pillar of light in the center of your being, and allows you to move through things like when fears come up and doubts come up much easier, is because you have that as a steady base, okay? And it's not taking over you. Little by little, you'll notice that fears don't take over you the same way as they did previously. All right, so thank you so much for watching. I send you all so much love, and I'll keep you posted on any events or offerings that come to me and I want to share with you all. But thank you so much. Sending you so much love. Take care. Bye-bye.